Hello, my name is Anne and I'm a museum educator here at Pottsgrove Manor. Now as 2020 comes to a close, it's a time that we've looked back and reflect on the year, and it really stands out as something that is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And so that can also cause us to go back in history and kind of see what other events were this once-in-a-generation kind of thing. And one thing really stands out for this time of year, and is a really fun topic to explore, and that is the history of frost fairs. Coaches plied from Westminster to the Temple, and from several other stairs to and fro as in the streets. Sleds, sliding with skeets, a bull baiting, horse and coach races, puppet plays and interludes, cooks, tippling and other lewd places, so that it seems a baccalaurean triumph or carnival on the water. So, what is a frost fair? Simply speaking, it is a fair that happened on the River Thames in London whenever it froze over enough for it to have this fair on it, full of tents, booths, merchants, all sorts of things. There are about 24 times that we know the River Thames froze over, but there are only 7 times that we know that there was a recorded frost fair. The first frost fair was actually held in 695 AD, so it certainly has a very long history. But then we don't really know too much until it jumps significantly, until the 17th century, so that is 1608 and 1683-84. Those are 2 really big frost fairs. One that we actually know a significant amount about is that second 1683-84 frost fair. And there are some wonderful images that come from that, showing how they set up the river in the kind of rows for the market. Really, what you have to imagine is that all the vendors of London have moved their storefronts to the river. I mean, you can sort of get that it's a kind of exciting thing for people to be able to do, to walk out onto this frozen river, explore the shops, but then also there's a lot of really special things to do, whether that is to go to the taverns. There's lots of records of taverns being set up, lots of things to eat and drink. There are ox being roasted on the ice, right? A whole ox being roasted on the ice. Incredible. There's also lots of games, 9-pin bowling, skating are really popular. But we also see that it's just a time to get souvenirs. Souvenirs are extremely popular. Whether it be fun little things like spoons, a pewter gravy boat, but really one of the biggest things is little tickets, souvenir kind of tickets that would have your name printed on them, and that they were printed at the Frost Fair on the River Thames. Now, this is an attraction that brings all different levels of people, all different classes. People from the lowest class are going to be able to get to the river, but we also know kings and queens frequent the fair, and there's actually a souvenir ticket for them too. Now, in the 18th century, there are 3 frost fairs. For those, we don't have tons of information about specifics that are happening in each of those fairs, but records show us that all frost fairs kind of share similar things. We mentioned the drinking, the eating, the souvenirs, the games, and there are sometimes dangers that come with the frost fair, whether it be when ice breaks up on the river and people may slip in and drown. There's also notices of when ships kind of cause accidents, and actually there's a record where an entire building fell over and killed about 6 people. So the frost fair is, in one aspect, dangerous to attend. Certainly if anyone who walks on a frozen river or pond does take risks with their safety. But the frost fair is that once in a lifetime, once in a generation thing to do. And so there are a lot of people willing to go out and see what it's like to be on the frost fair. And the last time a frost fair was held on the Thames is in 1814. That was actually a really big deal. People were very excited for that frost fair. And again, it ticks those boxes of what we'd expect. Food, drinking, games, everything. But there's also something really kind of interesting about this last Frost Fair. There are kind of records that, to try to get people to come down to this fair. An elephant was walked across the Thames to not only demonstrate that it was safe for people to do so, but it was also, that kind of amazing thing that you could tell your friends, oh yeah, I saw the elephant walk across the river. So you see a lot of different food that's being sold, whether it is, we talked about that roasted mutton. Gingerbread is particularly popular, and gingerbread comes in several different forms during the 18th, 17th to 19th centuries. A lot of times it can be that cookie shape, but it's not going to be always just circles. Hearts are popular, and also kind of molded gingerbread in human shapes, whether that be a biblical figure, but also kings and queens. And sometimes they could be gilded in gold or silver leaf, so they were truly something very special. And from this last Frost Fair, 1814, there is a piece of gingerbread cake, so a little bit thicker, that is still in existence. I don't think anyone's gonna eat it anytime soon, but it's wrapped and says that this was purchased at the 1814 Frost Fair. So those souvenirs certainly still are with us today. Now the Frost Fairs no longer exist because different bridges were torn down that changed the flow of the Thames, and so it was really less likely to freeze over again. There are times later after 1814 where it was significantly cold winters, and really in the 1960s it did freeze again and people walked out onto the ice. There's even people who bicycled along the ice, but no Frost Fair was held then. And probably today, even if the River Thames is going to freeze over again, it might be a bit of a logistical headache for people to be able to put a Frost Fair on. And so it's something that we probably aren't gonna see in our lifetimes. Now, Frost Fairs are a really fun piece of history to learn about, to kind of think about recreating and celebrating, and they certainly do have that kind of special Christmas feel, as they are the winter market, once in a generation, something truly special, in a way almost magical in many ways, that you are walking out onto this frozen river that has all of these special things for you to experience. Thank you so much from all of us here at Pottsgrove Manor for joining us in this kind of dive into a really fun part of history. Who knows, the Schuylkill River, which runs just in front of the house, may freeze over one day, and we might be inspired to have our own Frost Fair. But in the meantime, we will always be here sharing the history of the 18th century, the Potts family, and those who lived and worked here. The stories of the paid, indentured, and enslaved laborers who called this house home. And so as 2020 comes to a close, thank you for making Pottsgrove Manor part of your holiday season and part of your story of 2020.